Well, welcome everybody to the fourth one of our October surprise web chats about all things mostly related to entrepreneurship. And we've had a wonderful set of discussions this month, and I hope you have enjoyed them. And I know that many people watch after the fact because we'll send out the links. And I am super excited today to welcome somebody I have learned so much from in the last few months, and that is Maggie Sanchez. And Maggie has had such an amazing career. She has worked with the hugest companies on the planet, and she has invested herself. She has supported entrepreneurs of all different sizes. She is very committed to particularly diversity within the entrepreneurship world. And so, without further ado, I will just say I am Gloria Felt. I am co-founder and president of Take the Lead, and we welcome you here. And Maggie, why don't we just start by having you say a little bit about what are you up to? Why are you doing these things? And why are you so committed to this work that you do?
Super. Thank you, Gloria, and a huge welcome to everyone. Happy Friday, TGIF. Nothing makes me happier than to be here this morning to share with you some thoughts on my own journey, and then also highlight our upcoming program next week, which really 50 Women in Entrepreneurship Can Change the World, can significantly elevate your position to lead your business and drive social impact. So I'm going to first talk a little bit about my background. Gloria did a wonderful job, highlighting, some of the key dimensions of my career. And when you think about kind of my journey, I've actually had a couple of careers. So if you connect the dots through my careers and my experiences, I'd say the hallmark, and all of us should always look for a hallmark. What is the hallmark of your career? What is the hallmark of your life? And for me, it's been igniting innovation, primarily in tech, both at big global brands, as Gloria highlighted, Microsoft, IBM, and also in the startup ecosystem. And if you strip all that back and to its core, I've always been inspired by progress. So I think, I would really encourage everyone to think about what is your hallmark and what really inspires you, and connecting then what inspires you to your business. Because at the end of the day, we all excel when we do what we love. So it's so important to do what you love. And I've been so fortunate to drive innovation and to focus on progress, creating new products and services for big brands, for small, mentoring entrepreneurs, changing the basis of competition. So 20 years of experience in big tech, and being a trailblazer as a woman in big tech. And you can imagine 25 years ago that not a lot of people looked like me, right? Both from the standpoint of gender as well as ethnicity. And as I judiciously climbed that ladder, I always was a huge supporter of putting that ladder down and bringing women with me. And I think that is so important, that we elevate each other and that we support one another. And if you ask me, well, how did you do it, Maggie? What's the secret? I would say network and community. It's without network and community, it would just be so difficult. And that's one of the things that inspires me, Gloria, about your program and Take the Lead. A huge tenet of Take the Lead is community and networking. And really that it's about, we have to support each other. Now, in terms of what am I doing today, given my success, I've transformed my career into focusing on social impact and entrepreneurship. And I really felt a strong calling to give back. And what I am most passionate about, as I highlighted earlier, is really, I live to elevate women and people of color. That's what wakes me up every day, is my ability to take my experiences and my mentorship and to guide other women to reach their potential, because the potential is clearly there and the facts are clear, and Gloria knows the facts. And if you're on this webinar this morning, you know the facts. Gender disparity in leadership is unacceptable, and it's something that we're working toward closing. I know it's one of the missions of Take the Lead. Gender disparity in pay, there's just gender disparity on boards, gender disparity. I mean, it's just, and it doesn't matter if it's law or if it's business or if it's medicine or if it's education. Gender disparity is real, and one way to overcome it is through education and through training. And that's what I really like about this program, is that it can become a springboard for those tools for women to step into their power, because all of us have power that we don't know we have. So
yeah.
So I think, so that's kind of and so now what I'm doing is I have a portfolio career working with Take the Lead. I work with various organizations, including, I was very fortunate to get my MBA from Harvard Business School, and I'm now back at my alma mater, working on various programs focused on inclusion in capital markets, inclusion in entrepreneurship, inclusion in leadership, women on boards, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little bit about my past and why I'm here, and why I'm really, as you can tell from the energy in my voice, very excited to have this opportunity to share with you today.
So, but first of all, thank you for the kind words about the Take the Lead 50 Women Can Change the World in Entrepreneurship program. And I think the link is probably in the chat. And if it's not, it will be momentarily if people want to find out a little bit more about it. But I want to actually ask you to say more about the podcast series that you're doing with Harvard right now, because it might be a resource that people would like to know about and like to actually find and listen to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christina, if you go to the HBS website or you put Pathways to Inclusive Entrepreneurship, Maggie Sanchez, you'll find the link, and then you can put the link in the chat. It's a very important podcast, and it's a very insightful podcast. It's a 3-part series. The first part, so it's titled Pathways to Inclusive Entrepreneurship, because we know there are so many barriers. There are so many systemic barriers. There is bias, etc. So in the first podcast, we have a conversation with educators and with scholars to kind of paint the landscape of what some of those big issues are. So I think it is very important for everyone to understand what those barriers are. And then the educators and the scholars give tips and tricks on how to overcome those barriers. What are the traits and the characteristics of women and people of color who have been successful? What are those lessons learned? And so the podcast highlights that. Obviously, a very important ingredient to entrepreneurship is capital, right? We all need money. And so the second podcast is focused on perspective from capital creators across the whole money value chain. How do you get seed money? What do they look for? What state does your business need to be in? What does product market fit mean? What are the different financing options? And I do want to pause here, because this is an area that a lot of people, not only women and people of color, but entrepreneurs in general, they don't necessarily come from a finance background, understand the finance playbook. So there are a range of capital options, and that podcast also highlights those. Clearly, venture capital is a pathway, but that's a very specific type of business. There you're looking for disruption, innovation, hyper growth. But bank loans are also part of the money value chain. And especially if you have a business and there's collateral, then you can get very favorable terms. If you're doing a manufacturing business and you have a plant, or you have a facility, or it's real estate. Also, angel investing And today, angel investing exists in every sector. So if you're opening up a restaurant, or you're doing a commerce site, or if you're doing fashion, so there's a very expansive angel network out there. So that second podcast kind of talks about the different financing options to entrepreneurs. Then the third one is such a rich one. It's the perspective from founders themselves, the founder's journey, highlighting, some of the challenges that they encountered and highlighting how they overcame them, how you talk to venture capitalists, how you prepare a presentation, how important it is to focus on the customer journey as a part of your value proposition and your differentiation. This is something I want to highlight, because it's, we say we're going to become an entrepreneur, and then we start doing all this work. And a lot of times we don't spend enough time with the customer that we're creating a solution for. Or we think, this is another trap for a lot of entrepreneurs, we think we know the solution without spending enough time focusing on what problem are we solving. Entrepreneurs get so wedded to their solution, and it's like, okay, you can spend so much money. And whereas if you just spend a little bit more time upfront on understanding that customer and refining the value proposition, and then thinking through all the different dimensions. So this podcast has the three different themes with three different audiences. I think that can be very helpful. So if you have an opportunity to view that ahead of for those of you joining us for the 50 Women Can Change the World, then you'll come even more prepared. And, Gloria, I think I said this before, and I say this to everyone that I mentor, is education and training are so critical for our success. We can't do it alone. And community and network. And those themes also resonate in each one of those podcasts.
Well, what you just said about, in particular, the community piece of it is one of the things that it probably, if people hear me say it once during a training session that I'm doing, they probably hear it like 25 times, which is the world turns on human connections. And I don't say that in a transactional kind of way. I say it in a way of really, this is how you build your credibility. This is how you build trust. And credibility and trust are always at the heart of being able to accomplish anything, whether it is in the entrepreneurial world, whether it's in a company and you want to be to move into leadership. It doesn't matter what it is. You've got to have that human connection. I don't care how many followers you have on LinkedIn. I don't care. You have to have that human connection to really accomplish these things. And sometimes it's hard in today's world to do that, because we are so inundated with information. We're inundated with social media, all these kinds of things. So thank you for sharing that, and for sharing the information that's in that podcast, because I'm sure it can be very, very helpful to people. And to sort of play off of that, we do know that there is a real upsurge in women starting businesses, but they're mostly starting smaller businesses. What advice would you give to women as they're thinking about entrepreneurship? And I want to say one more thing about it before I turn it over to you to answer that, which is that I really think that companies are very intent right now on bringing women back into the workforce. And women are going back into the corporate workforce, to be sure. But I think that the real competition that companies have is not from other companies now. It is from women deciding they want to control their own lives by starting their own businesses. And because when you start your own business, you can create the culture that you want. You can set your own boundaries. You can do a lot of things that will enable you to support your family and still have a life, which is very important to so many women. That said, our mission with our 50 Women Can Change the World in entrepreneurship program is not only to help the women who are entrepreneurs to simply do a better job of what they're doing and accomplish their goals and help them clarify their goals. It's also to help them think bigger. It's also to help them think bigger. I mean, like, hello, let's have a woman invent the next, you know,
Yes.
whatever the next iPhone thing is that changes how we do everything. Let's have a woman create the next thing and take credit for it.
Right.
Credit for it, because we have so many examples of women who have invented things and then have not taken the credit for it, or not gotten the credit for it. So I wonder, can you speak to that phenomenon of women starting businesses at an astonishing rate, and yet most of them are smaller? What is your advice to a woman who's thinking about starting a business, and how do you think if you were starting a business right now, how would you want to approach it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first thing I would say is, it's very important to make sure that you start a business related to something that you're passionate about, which is what I said earlier, because, it's connecting what you care about and then making money from what you care about, right? And that's a very powerful combination. The other point I want to highlight, and you emphasize this, Gloria, is the importance of thinking big. And, when you originally start whiteboarding or blue skying what your business can be, think about it from the perspective, if I didn't have any constraints, what could this be?
Mm-hmm.
Because, when we impose constraints, then we limit ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Women are always limiting ourselves. We do that by nature anyway, but allow yourself to dream and allow yourself to dream big. Know that you can, and then you can. I say that all the time. Know
Love
that
that
you
so
can,
much. Mm-hmm.
and then you can. But if you don't know that you can, you can't. So you've got to dream big. Know that you can, and then you can. And then I would say, when you think about entrepreneurship, and you think about the traits that entrepreneurs have that enable them to break through that, small business, is first and foremost assertiveness, right? And don't confuse, assertiveness and confidence with being bold with being rude. Own it, own your power, and be unabashed about it, because strive for your dream. The other thing I would say is be action-minded. So be assertive, be action-minded. Don't just think, okay, I've already, this is the art of the possible, but act, and really be intentional and deliberate about a plan, and hold yourself accountable to that plan, and execute and act. And I know that part of your program is really about having
True.
that,
Mm-hmm.
but I say that it's like, define it as a goal and an objective, and measure yourself, hold yourself accountable. The other one I highlight, and I would say that male entrepreneurs as well as female entrepreneurs don't do enough of this: experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Experiment. Test what works before you scale, and it's so easy to test nowadays, tests, what's giving you an ROI in terms of customer acquisition. Test, 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 experiment. Don't think that your your focus group of one has the answer of how to do it. Experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I would say is risk taking, right? And that one is depends on where you are with your business, but measured risk is not bad risk. I have this conversation with a lot of female entrepreneurs, not with a lot of male entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Measured risk is not bad risk. So measured risk. Think through the different scenarios. Know where you have degrees of to take risk.
I think that is such great advice. I think, I mean, I love to hear you talk about it that way because it is, you know, there are differences in socialization around risk taking between boys and girls, men and women. And women are much more taught to be risk averse, to be more cautious, to be more careful, almost to be afraid, actually. I mean, I hate to say this, but if you think about how especially teenage girls are acculturated, they're taught to be fearful, frankly, of
Right.
so many things in life. Whereas really what we need to do is to teach them to take those measured risks and the calculated risk, and also to understand that, I mean, you know, the one of the benefits of sports, and
Yes.
it's really great to see more girls
Mm.
participating in sports now, because what you learn from playing sports, and especially team sports, is how to win and how to lose
Yeah.
with grace both times, either way. And if you lose, you get up and you play again.
That's
And
it.
and I think I think it's probably true that so many successful entrepreneurs, especially among women, have had experience playing some kind of team sport. I mean, I digress a little bit, but I do think that that's an important part of it. Um, so you have given some really great tips. I want to just encourage questions. If anybody has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I know that Maggie will be happy to answer them. And you've dropped some really great pearls of advice here. I'd like to see if you could drill down more on the first thing that you said about dreaming big. Do you have personal processes, like tips that you could give to people to help them dream
Yeah,
big?
yeah, I think one of the things that I'll highlight is understand what is getting in your way. I think that's really important. And there is, you can find it on the internet, an exercise that you can go through, which identifies 10 of the most common saboteurs, like how we sabotage ourselves, for
It's
example.
like the power demons I have in my book
Yes.
Intentioning. Yeah.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Uh,
so understand what that is so that when it creeps up, you can stop it. So I think really understanding, like, and I'll share with you, like one of the things that really earlier in my career that I struggled with immensely was my relationship with money. And
mhm.
that's another thing would say to women, like, that's very important, is to understand their relationship to money, because we're not taught, we're like men, to think about money in a way that is about wealth creation for ourselves and for our community and for our families. And coming from the inner city, from very humble beginnings, and then but making a decision that I wanted a different path for myself, and that I was going to get a house on the other side of the tracks, and that I was going to find a way to have a different life than the one I was brought into. And what was really important for me was to think big by imagining, thinking about what I enjoyed and what I loved, and imagining what I could do if I wasn't a woman. Imagine what I could do if I wasn't a person of color. What could I do if I didn't come from humble beginnings? What would I want to do? What would be my aspirations? What would be my goal? And when I asked myself that question, I said, from a very early age, I said, I'm going to Harvard Business School because it's one of the best, and I don't know how it's going to happen. Don't know anyone who's not only gone to Harvard Business School, but even has a high school education. um, but it's like, what if?
Mhm.
So leave those constraints at the door and think big. Understand what is getting in your way, and if you can, like Disney said, if you can dream it, you can have it. So it's, again, if you if you can imagine it, you can be it. So, and I think the discussion on the saboteurs and what you have in your book is a really important one. I think the other thing that I would highlight as a tool is, and it comes from Japanese philosophy. It's called Ikigai, Ikagi. And going through that exercise in concert with the saboteur exercise will give you an opportunity to connect what you love to how you can make money. And I'm the co-founder of the Venture Institute here in Arizona, and I would actually give a lot of credit to Melissa Kagawa. Actually, we incorporate these tools as a part of our fellows to help them break through. And I'm sharing this with you because it's hot off the press and it has been so effective.
That is great. Thank you so much for that. We have some questions, Maggie.
Okay.
So let's take the questions. Victoria, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Victoria. How do you seek for a sponsor as I'm climbing the corporate ladder? Which is a little bit, it's not exactly the same, but I think the same principles apply regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're inside a corporation. Let's talk about that, because people often talk about the difference between mentors and sponsors, and that a mentor is somebody who will help you along and talk to you and perhaps educate you about some things and share experiences with you. But a sponsor is somebody who actually, as Carla Harris says, carries your paper when you're not in the room. Who actually will help to spread the word about you so that you will get that promotion that you want. What advice would you have to Victoria?
Yes, I mean, great question. And thank you for that differentiation, Gloria, because you're spot on. I mean, a sponsor is your advocate. I mean, they are there when you're not there. I think it is critical, especially in a large organization, to have not only one sponsor, but multiple sponsors. Sponsors play a significant role of ensuring that you get included in the slate, especially around promotion and around development. It's very difficult without a sponsor advocating for you, who knows your contributions, who can emphasize what you've delivered and your results to keep you on that slate and to advance you in those discussions. Frequently, without a sponsor, it becomes more difficult. Not impossible, but it's very important that you have someone who is advocating on your behalf.
How do you get one? I mean, how do you get one? I think that's, like the heart of the question is, do I go around like, what's the little children's book? Are you my mother? Like, are you my sponsor? Will you my sponsor? What, Maggie, will you be my sponsor? How do you do this?
Yeah, no, some big organizations have processes for that. I think that it can happen, and I've seen it work successfully in various ways. I think one of the most important things is, like, even if you're assigned a sponsor, is you have to have good chemistry and trust with that sponsor. So it's, building relationships with senior executives at corporations. And to your point of how do you get one, how did I get many sponsors? By showing up, and not only showing up at the table and not saying a word. How am I going to get a sponsor that way? Taking risks to contribute and illustrating my perspective and what I bring and how I am serving customers and helping the organization. What I see with women oftentimes is oh my gosh, unless I know I'm 1,000% right with how I'm going to answer, I'm not going to answer. Take that risk and answer. More than you think because if you're not answering, you're not going to get the sponsors. Sponsors are going to be attracted to people that they know they can support, and that will be supported by others that are part of these committees.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So Jennifer Hoon, I'm I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, Jennifer. Please help me if I'm not. What strategies do you advise young women to employ to assert themselves, this is very related, professionally in environments where they encounter inappropriate behavior from men?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it, it's unfortunate, but it still exists today. It still exists today. So, my advice is, first and foremost, is to be professional and to be relatable, but to also be clear on your boundaries and to really reflect as well on your behavior, and if your behavior can be misinterpreted. And it's unfortunate because behaviors can be misinterpreted, and err on the side of being conservative, because men have this is not the right forum to discuss details on this, but things can be misconstrued sometimes in terms of the opposite gender in how they're reacting to us. So being more conservative, I think is a safer route. And again, I need to be very frank as well. There is a lot of inappropriate behavior, and we need to really calculate when it's appropriate, not even appropriate, but when we can highlight it to the organization and when we can't, because a lot of times it'll backfire. So if that happens, repeatedly, then clearly you're not in the right, one wouldn't be in the right culture, and would need to really ensure really understanding and assessing the culture of that organization. You can always have one bad player,
Right.
but if
Well,
you're
and I think, apropos of what you said about taking risks, one of the risks that we are often very hesitant to take is to speak directly to the person who may not even realize
true,
that they have been inappropriate. They may not even sometimes, and particularly across cultures, not just gender, but across cultures as well. Sometimes it's really important to basically educate someone, and to do it in a way that you don't shame them, that you take them aside and you say, or you take them to lunch, take them to coffee, whatever, and you just have a frank conversation about how their behavior hit you, how their behavior, what reaction you have when they exhibit that behavior. I mean, I think very often people don't, there's not necessarily a negative intent.
yeah,
Sometimes people just don't get it. And so I would say, particularly for women who are already in some kind of leadership position, you're going to be listened to if you take someone aside and you say, look, I suspect you didn't mean anything negative by this, but here's your behavior that I observed, and
yeah,
here's how I felt about it. I would like to ask you to not to do that anymore. Please don't do that anymore. Here's how I would like to be treated. And I think it actually doesn't matter where you are in the organization. People actually appreciate it. And I think in today's world, where there's a lot of sensitivity about, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing for a particular group of people? I would err on the side of taking some of those risks, and and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is it doesn't turn out well, and then you go to
yeah.
HR, or you go to whoever you need to go to in the company to to report negative behavior. But if you can turn it into a positive learning experience, then you actually help to change the culture for everybody, not just yourself.
Yeah,
So I think that
great.
is very helpful. Jennifer, thank you. I'm glad that was helpful to you very, very much. And yes, we can. I mean, that's one of the things. If I will just say that one of the things that we do a lot of discussion about and teaching in, and with our 9 Leadership Power Tools online course, and also We will go through all of these different tips and tools in the entrepreneurship program. So if you're interested in signing up for either of those, please do check them out. And if it feels like a good fit for you to join up with us, because that is what we do. We're not teaching you all the nuts and bolts you need to know. There's a lot that you have to learn about budgeting and planning and HR and yada, 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 when you're starting a business, or even if you're moving up in a company. But what we really deal with is these mindset issues that Maggie has been articulating so well. It's like, what is your relationship with power? What power do you have? How do you value yourself? As you started off by saying, you have to value yourself. So those are it's really the mindset things that we start with and that we focus on. So we have a lot of free materials on our website as well for you to take advantage of. I think I saw that Lucy Holcomb had her hand up. And Lucy, did you have a question that you would like to ask? Feel free to just speak it, if you are still there. Oh, Melissa Kukua. Hi, Maggie. Your story is so inspiring. I have a question. Accessing resources from family and friends. How should entrepreneurs navigate asking for investment from those closest to them? Oh, okay, good. Thank you. All right. So that was Melissa's question, was how do you navigate that with family and friends? That can get a little dicey, can't it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's actually also, oftentimes a barrier for, women and people of color, because we don't necessarily come from circles where there are enough people that are in a position to contribute based on that. I think that and I think the other thing is I would highlight, and I think about my own entrepreneurship journey and asking money from friends and family. It is hard because, money is, precious. And I finally got the courage by believing in myself and believing that I was going to win. Because I remember what was the barriers to say, oh my gosh, what happens if I don't succeed and they lose the money? And there's just like, oh, pit in the stomach, how can I do this? So I finally said to myself, well, who do you think is able? And how about not thinking about losing the money, but how about thinking about helping them win more money, right? By believing in yourself. So I think that was a big piece for me, to have that courage. And I ended up raising $500,000 from family and friends. But it was a lot. And, the business, for me, each of us has to gauge at what point do you need to have product market fit? Does it make sense to ask money? For me, I needed to kind of be a little bit further, because I kept thinking I didn't want to lose money for people. But I'll say this, if I was a guy, I would have never even given that consideration.
No. You wouldn't know about it. You would have picked up the phone and called and say, are you in? Are you not in?
Exactly.
Great opportunity I'm giving you, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, there are some gender differences there, but part of it is confidence. Part of it is, conditioning. So think about the maturity of your business and your timing, and then approach them from the perspective of, I'm not going to lose you money. I'm going to win you money.
Love that. Well, we are nearing the end of our time together. And so first of all, thank you everybody who registered for this particular fireside chat. Clearly, this is a topic that people are very interested in. And I genuinely hope that you have received some good tips that you can take and use. And we're so happy that you came and joined us today, and so happy that, Maggie, that you have shared so much of your wisdom. What would you like to sum up with? What would you like to say to kind of put a wrapper on all of it?
Yeah. So again, I'm not here necessarily to advertise Gloria's program next week, which I'm, a participant and a thought leader together with her. But she touched on her power tools and the impact that it can have on your business and your life. So if you're able to participate, there's a couple of options. One is in person. And then we also most recently have made it available virtually. Invest in yourself. Take the time to invest in yourself. Think about what the word invest means. If you're investing, you're going to get an ROI. You're not going to invest in something where you're going to lose. So I think my final thought is invest with yourself, invest in yourself, and you're going to get that ROI. And if you don't make that investment, that upside is going to be much more difficult to attain and to achieve. So invest in yourself, believe in yourself. And I really want to also thank you for being here. Make sure that as you continue to ascend, throw that ladder down for others too, because it's all about rising together.
Beautiful, beautifully, beautifully put. Maggie Sanchez, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your support always of Take the Lead and who we are and what we do. And it really is such a huge pleasure and honor for me to get to work with you on 50 Women Can Change the World in Entrepreneurship. So thank you for sharing so many of your tips and your wisdom. And I am sure that you will be hearing from more people on social media because, please feel free, folks, to reach out and connect. And Maggie, if you want to tell people how to reach you, you can do that. So feel free.
Feel free on LinkedIn, or it's very easy. Maggie, my first name, .Sanchez at live.com. Very lucky to get that email because I was at Microsoft at the time when we launched that email platform. So very easy, Maggie.Sanchez at live.com.
Oh, this is wonderful. You're getting lots of kudos in the chat. So we'll send you the chat.
Okay.
We'll definitely send you the chat. You're getting lots of warm fuzzies there.
Okay.
We'll really appreciate what you've had to say. And thank you so much. We'll see you. We'll be launching the 50 Women program very soon, next week, in Phoenix, but in Mesa. But as you said, for those who choose the virtual option, they can still register for even a week after that because we'll have the materials available for them. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody again, and we'll see you soon. All righty.
Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.